And I caught this and I was shocked, actually, when I saw the number of articulated public benefits that people who are non-citizens of the United States who do not hold legal like visas have access to in our country. Dan Lennington from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty joins me on the program. And of course, we're not even adding the 100%, non-objectionable legal benefits that illegal aliens would have if their children are conferred birthright citizenship. It's great to have you, Dan.
Thanks for having me on, Vicki.
So this isn't accessible through birthright citizenship. That's what first off, we're talking about this. Most of these are not. So I'm just going to throw a whole bunch out, and then I'm not going to get through all of them because you listed somewhere around 28 or 30 of them. Totally illegal aliens can have their kids, this is kids not born in the United States, public schooling, free school breakfast and lunch, Wisconsin's food service program, WIC, emergency Medicaid, Medicaid prenatal planning, workers' compensation, free cell phone, HRSA clinics, Title X family planning, FEMA. They can get a city ID in the city of Milwaukee. They can get college admission, in-state college admission, and then limited private and institutional UW campus scholarships and aid. And that's for people who are 100% illegal. They don't have TPA. They don't have, TPS. They don't have anything else. What the heck? We can't even get an audit of how many people are using these public benefits who are not supposed to be using these public benefits.
Yeah, these first 13 you mentioned are available to anybody who just came over the border today and walked over the border, came up to Wisconsin and walked into any of these places. Hospitals, the PSC gives free cell phones, FEMA disaster aid, as you mentioned, Milwaukee City ID. All these things are available because there's no immigration check at all. So, for example, if you apply for admission to UW-Madison to go to college, they don't even check. And they also offer limited financial aid and scholarships to people without even checking. A lot of this stems from back in 1982 when a very liberal U.S. Supreme Court ruled that public schools have to educate illegal aliens. That was a 5-4 decision with 4 conservatives dissenting and 5 liberals in the majority. That case is called Plyler versus Doe. There are some groups around the country that are trying to encourage local school boards to vote to ban illegals from admission, to basically bring that case back up to the much more conservative U.S. Supreme Court now to see whether that decision will be overturned. But a lot of this idea is that, like, if you're in here and you're illegally, there are certain standard of care. For example, you said WIC. That's an EBT card. And an average family gets about $1,200 a week on WIC on an EBT card. And you don't need to prove, a week. Yes, the family of 4 gets $1,144 a week to buy groceries on an EBT card. And that's in addition to all sorts of health care and other benefits you can get. Now, if you go to the second level, which is where the Evers administration comes in, which is where you can get a state driver's license, a state ID, a work permit, and full Medicaid. According to the Evers administration, to get this bevy of goods, all you need is a, quote, pending application for asylum, or a, quote, pending application for temporary protective services or adjustment of status. Now, I looked all over the guidance documents from the Evers administration, and it does not provide any information about what is a, quote, pending application. But I believe that if an illegal immigrant goes on the internet and downloads one of these forms and fills it out, they can just show the form that they filled out to the DMV and say, here's my pending application for, quote, adjustment of status, whatever that means. Now, please give me a driver's license. There's nothing to indicate that the Evers administration requires some sort of verification from Department of Homeland Security or Customs and Immigration or Border Patrol or anything from the federal government. All they do, apparently, unless they have some secret policy I'm not aware of. They just take the word of the illegal immigrant, and then you get your driver's license, which unlocks all sorts of things, including, Vicki, a Social Security number.
It also includes voting. Your driver's license is your voting document. It's your voter ID as well. So, and we're not auditing any of this, right? We don't have an idea of how many people are tapped into the services and then are saying, I have applied, I am pending a silence, DACA, TPS, whatever. However, and I was going to ask you that question. I mean, is it just an attestation that I have applied? It could be, right? You get a driver's license. Then you can use that driver's license to get yourself your Social Security number, et cetera. Eventually, if you've got your work permit, you've got all these source documents, what would prevent you from getting a real ID?
Yeah, there's nothing to prevent you from a real ID, and there's also nothing to prevent you from actually filing taxes and getting the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit. Once you have a Social Security number, you basically are functioning as a U.S. citizen, and you have your real ID.
You're accruing Social Security benefits. You're accruing Medicare benefits. You're accruing benefits going into the future.
Yeah, and we have, the most conservative estimates in Wisconsin are that we have about between 75,000 and 100,000 illegal immigrants in our state that are, for the most part, vast majority of them are working every single day in jobs. And it is illegal to hire an illegal alien. It is a crime. And so they're working with some sort of documents. And so if they're not going down this sort of lawful path that I have laid out of the 28 ways you can use lawful benefits based on illegal status, they're probably using identity theft. They're probably using a fake ID, a fake Social Security number, which is victimizing some actual U.S. citizen. So, that's 75,000, 100,000. In our K through 12 schools, the estimates are between 5,000 and 7,000 students are there. And, we pay on average, we spend about $17,000 on average per student per year to educate them. And, in places like Milwaukee, that number might go up towards 26, 27, 28,000, however much Milwaukee is spending per student per year. So this is a significant drain on the system. And all these things, with the exception of admission to K through 12 public schools, are just policy choices that we make. That a different governor, a different attorney general could make different decisions, a different legislature. They could just turn all these sources off. And it seems to me like the reason why people come to America illegally is because they feel like they can get these three things. And if these three things weren't here, they would stop coming.
Well, if you don't have to pay for food, if you don't have to pay for your food, if you can get thousands of dollars on an EBT card every month, that's enough of a reason for a whole bunch of people. Just free food, just to come over into the United States. And that is one of the things that we offer to people with no documented status. They can just flat out be someone who walked into the country illegally and you're good to go. It's kind of amazing if you think about this. And if you talk about it, somehow, I don't even know, you're not even allowed to ask these questions. And Dan, you may not even remember this. It has to have been 15, maybe 20 years ago. There was one proposal in the legislature to count the number of illegal aliens in Wisconsin, to create a mechanism to count them. And I believe the author of that legislation was Glenn Grothman back when he was in the Assembly. That's how long ago this was. And it died. Both Republicans and Democrats killed it. I remember that Jim Doyle was the governor, but both Republicans and Democrats killed that. Where is the political upside for any of this to politicians besides Democrats? I don't get the Republicans and the state of Wisconsin. Tony Evers says that the political upside of this is that nobody would man our dairy farms if we didn't have a bunch of illegal aliens we were basically giving free food to.
Yeah, I that's always the claim from the left, is that they say things that are incredibly stereotypical things like, well, who's going to clean your toilets if the illegals aren't here? Like, that's what Democrats say. That's what they think of the illegal aliens that are here. And they're allowed to use all sorts of stereotypes to quantify these people and say all these things won't get done. We on the right, I think, and, just want to be a little cautious about this. I think we are very recently preoccupied with this birthright citizenship thing. It's very likely in my mind that the Trump administration is gonna lose, and we are going to continue status quo, which is that all visitors and illegals who have children here are going to be U.S. citizens. That's just going to be the hard truth, and people are just going to have to live with that. That's the way the law has been, and that's probably the way the law is going to end up after June. But the focus shouldn't be on that issue, because it's a much more important issue that we're giving benefits to the people who are here, which is causing the problem in the first place. If we actually enforced our border, gave benefits to citizens only, and turned off the magnet, the number of birthright citizens who were guests or visitors or tourists would be minuscule. It would be a few hundred a year, a few thousand a year, not a big deal. But right now we have potentially millions of people who have been born here and become U.S. citizens, and then that also creates the chain of family members coming over and changes our country significantly in an unintentional way from as far as we're concerned. But as you said, the left, this is intentional, what they want to do to America, and it's basically to prop up their demographic losses in places like New York and California and Oregon and Washington and Illinois, where they're losing congressional seats. They're trying to push in illegals in there to pump up their numbers so that the 2030 census, they will retain their seats in Congress and their electoral votes. I mean, that is overall the strategy. They love these people to vote Democrat, but they need butts and seats.
Bodies.
They need bodies to count in 2030 so that they don't lose their electoral votes. And so that's really what's going on from their side. But, we on the right need to educate ourselves about what is a citizen. It's 2026. We have our 250th anniversary this year. What is a citizen? People should be able to answer that. What does it mean to be a citizen? Why is it important to be a citizen? How is a citizen different than a non-citizen? And yes, it's great to treat our guests with sympathy and compassion, especially when they're lawful guests, people who we have invited here to come experience our country. But citizens should be the primary focus of our country. And if we don't even know what a citizen is, or what it means to be a citizen, or what are the requirements to be a citizen, then of course there's going to be all sorts of leakage. There's going to be the blurring of lines. And when you come into this country illegally and you can get a Social Security number and driver's license, and in some places you can vote, and maybe you can vote illegally here and we don't even know, it blurs the division between citizen and non-citizen. That just sort of makes it not important to be a citizen anymore. And people don't really even take that seriously about the obligations of citizenship and the benefits that you derive from being.
I agree. And we don't teach it. It's not taught under the $17,000 a year on average that we're spending in K-12 that Tony Evers, by the way, says is just not enough. Just not enough. Deal with it, he said. Get over it, the property tax increase, because we got to spend more, but apparently not to educate people on citizenship. By the way, before we close out of this, if in those pending applications, so let's say you're pending for an asylum application, temporary protected status, or DACA, you can get that driver's license, state ID, work permit, full Medicaid. And that, of course, once you get that work permit, you have access to the earned income tax credit, the child care tax credit, professional licenses, all kinds of things that all of a sudden, it doesn't take that much. All you got to do is say, hey, it's pending. And again, we don't even have people interested in asking how many folks are in this state of Wisconsin that are indulging this generosity. Dan Lennington, as always, thank you very much. I love that you did this. You got some pushback, you got some flack, because the truth is hard. But thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.